is Doug Schumann. I'd like to show you today how I make strawberry rhubarb mead. I've been making mead now for at least a half a dozen years, and most of my knowledge and information comes from this book, and I wanted to bring this to people's attention. It's a very well written, a lot of information on what's important, how to do it, and even recipes. So keep that in mind. When it comes to mead making, recipes are the very important aspect. Like I said, the book has recipes. Once you get into this for a while, you can sort of play around with the ingredients a little bit. This is my recipe for today's mead, strawberry rhubarb mead. Of course, requires strawberries, rhubarb, and honey, because mead is made with honey. The other ingredients, water and nutrients and things to help the yeast work. Of course, you'll have to have yeast to ferment it, and some sterilizing agent. That's what Camden tablets are. Okay, so let me back up here and show you the ingredients. I highly recommend that you assemble your ingredients before you get started on anything, just to make sure you have everything in order. I have 3 2-pound bags of strawberries. These are fresh strawberries last summer. They were picked and frozen, cleaned and cut up and frozen. I have 2 8-ounce bags of rhubarb. So that's going to be 1 pound of rhubarb to 6 pounds of strawberries. I have some local honey. I happen to be a beekeeper. This is my own honey. The other materials needed being a fermenter pail with an airlock. Inside this fermenter pail happens to be a muslin bag. You can get these again at the brewer's supply. This bag we'll take and we'll put the fruit in this bag, and that helps keep the material, the heavy waste from the fruit, and separate that from the juice when it comes time. All right, now let's go over here on the countertop and look at some of the other necessary materials that we're working on to make mead. Part of the ingredients require a what's called Fermate K. This is actually a yeast nutrient, and this is a good nutrient. Of course, buy at the supplier, the brewery supply. There's a yeast energizer that's on the ingredients. There's some pectin enzyme and distilled water in the jug. Over here we have a acid test. It's really a pH test, little strips, and then acid blend to lower the pH, and calcium carbonate to raise the pH. We're going to have to make sure the pH is correctly adjusted in the mead. The Camden tablets are a sterilizing agent. You can get those at the brewer. And then other things you will need to assemble. I'm going to smash my strawberries and get all the juice out of them that I can. Of course, as I mentioned, the pulp will remain in the bag and we'll get the juice out. It's good to have a like a baster syringe, stirring paddle. This is a hydrometer, which will measure sugars. You need to measure starting sugars, and you need to measure ending sugars after your fermentation is done to make sure it's done completely correct. Now, to go with your hydrometer, you need a test cylinder, which you will put your liquid in. The liquid, when you make it up, is called a must. So you'll be putting your must in there to check for starting sugars. And I have some extra honey there in a jar to help. Down the line somewhere, you will need bottles and siphoning tubes. Okay, before we start assembling this mead, I'd like to make a comment about cleanliness and sanitation. I use this Star San. In the case of cleaning the bucket, regular dish detergent, antibacterial, is not the best. You should just use plain old dish detergent. avoid the antibacterial stuff. You know, like wash your bucket out, and then any of your tools, you wash those, clean everything up, and then maybe take a gallon of water and put in the correct amount of star sand, and make a solution of star sand. Then you can put that in the bucket, and in the bucket you can place your tools and your hydrometer and stuff just to sanitize them. And then you can take them all out and put them on a paper towel or something and let them, you know, dry out in the air. This star sand sanitizer, even if it's wet, it will not affect the product at all. Okay, and I'd like to talk a little bit about getting your honey into solution. Everybody knows that honey is a very thick and, you know, very goopy. All right, I'm going to put this pint of honey into a bigger jar. Now this pint happens to represent about 1.33 pounds of weight by weight. That would be 16 ounces. A normal pound of honey is 12 ounces. All right, so I'm going to cut that off right there. And just to give you a quick method of working with honey, distilled water, they're not going to mix too easily, but they will mix. The important thing is this is all cold right now, and what I recommend is going over to your microwave, putting your water and your honey in there, and warming it up. Let's do like 3 minutes and 33 seconds on high power. Okay, now that should warm it up sufficiently that we can get that honey into the solution of water. It'll be thinned out water honey, and that's fine. Okay, we're at this point where we can now start assembling. Now the bucket has been cleaned and sterilized. Again, I'll show you, this is the Muslim bag. It's usually like for making beer, you put all your hops and stuff in there. But we're using it to put the strawberries and the pulp and the rhubarb in. So again, here are my 6 pounds of strawberries, nice and soggy, and they're still a little half frozen. So they're going in inside the bag. Got one stuck in there. 2 pounds, 4 pounds, 6 pounds of strawberries. This is why it's good to have a bigger bucket. This bucket is hold 3 gallons, and we're only making a gallon, so we have plenty of room for that extra pulp. In rough terms, I was using about 1/2 to 3/4 of a gallon of distilled water, about 24 ounces of honey, and all of this juice that comes out of the rhubarb and the strawberries. Okay. So here is the strawberries and the rhubarb in the bag, in the bucket. And this is where a potato smasher will really come in handy, because you want to press this and extract as much juice as you can. See the juice starting to come up. There we go. That's very important to start getting that juice. There we go. Now I'm going to continue doing this for a while, and I'm going to start adding a little bit of this warm honey water, honey distilled water. Okay, so I'd like to review where we stand right now. I put 16 ounces of honey. That's by volume. That was about 1.33 pounds into here, and added distilled water. This holds 48 ounces, so probably added 30 ounces of distilled water. And I put all 6 pounds in the bucket of berries and 1 pound of rhubarb, of the strawberries and the rhubarb, and mashed it all up, and I added at least, I guess, 40 ounces of liquid with the honey in it. And I don't know if you can tell on the side of the bucket here, you can see where the line of the fill is. It's a little over 1 gallon right up here. Now, I'd like to get this to be about 1.5 gallons, because I think you'll notice when we pull the pulp out, we're going to drop down a lot. We're going to get a lot more juice out of the pulp, but I don't know if you can see the dropping of the level. There we go. Okay, so I'd like to get that level up to about 1.5 gallons. So we're just going to use regular distilled water. And okay, that looks like about 1.5 gallons. And that is the honey and the berries, crushed berries, up to about 1.5 gallons. When this gets fermented and then racked into a jar, we're only going to fill a 1 gallon jug. So here's our 1 gallon jug that we're going to rack the liquid into after it's fermented. So we have to make sure at this point we have enough liquid to fill the jug when it's done fermenting. If we don't have enough to fill the jug, we really can just go back and add more distilled water. That will not harm it at all. Okay, here is what we call our must when we're doing winemaking or mead making. It's about 1.5 gallons, including the muslin bag with the pulp in it. Now, I want you to see that I've worked this bag over a little bit. Even with my hands, I've gotten in there and squeezed it and tried to get all the juices out of the pulp as much as possible. And it's made a pretty good liquid here. Obviously nice and strawberry red. And it's a little colder than I would like it because of the frozen strawberries. I probably should have let them thaw out a little more. Or I could have heated up the water and the honey a little more to offset that. But at this point, the cold won't matter because this is going to sit overnight before we actually pitch the yeast and start the fermentation process. So at this point, we are pretty much have the fruit in, we have the honey in. We have not checked to see what level of sugars there are there yet. We may have to adjust that. But I'm going to go ahead and put in the enzymes and check the pH. Okay,